However, the fundamental business model is wrong and exploits people and resources. I don't think a fast fashion brand can become ethical unless they start producing a lot less, start paying people properly, which means that they cannot hold their price tags that low. It's fundamentally wrong in terms of ethics and sustainability to run a fast fashion brand.
Hi everyone, welcome back to Looking Outside, where we explore fresh takes on familiar topics. And today we're talking about a $1.8 trillion topic, and one that's undergone a pretty significant transformation over the last 3 decades in particular. Today we're talking about fast fashion, slow fashion, and timeless style with French designer and fashion content creator guru, goddess, if you will, Justine Leconte. Hi, Justine.
Hi, hello. Thanks for having me on the show. I was looking forward to this.
Yeah, me too. This is like an absolute highlight for me. I was telling Justine gushingly, I think, that I've been a huge fan of her content for years now. So this is just such a pleasure and a joy to have you on, especially because I know that you're not just a YouTuber, you're also a designer. So you have like these 2 jobs in your life where you're actually creating beautiful pieces, one of which I am wearing right now, actually.
So
I can imagine that
this is the golden one?
It is,
cool.
But I bought it, it's too small, so I'm actually wearing it on my pinky, which I quite like.
I do that too.
So
I do that too.
Oh, nice.
With that one. Yeah. Oh, great.
So I might just start by getting you to do a little bit of an introduction into who you are.
I'd love that. So my name is Justine Leconte, spelled in French, Leconte. Born and raised in France. I originally studied business. So I have master's degrees in marketing and strategy. And then eventually I changed paths and went back to school and studied fashion. So I am a university-trained fashion designer. I studied at Parsons in New York. And then I started my fashion label. I ran that independently in 2015. Shortly after graduating, because I had business experience before and I knew what I wanted to do. I went back to school to study fashion with the goal of starting my own label, which I did. I started with knitwear, so apparel, ready to wear. And eventually I branched out into jewelry and accessories as well, because I like handbags. And I think if you have the look, but you don't have the right accessories, then the look is not complete, right? So, and I also like to experiment with new categories and things. So now I have ready-to-wear jewelry and handbags and small leather goods. Then I realized that people didn't actually know what my job was about, because we see documentaries on TV of how it works at Dior or at Chanel with an atelier of hundreds of people working behind the scenes. My job is not the same. That's not my life. I'm not a Lagerfeld or an Yves Saint Laurent who was just drawing things and then a dress appeared. But he had nothing to do with the construction of it. I have everything to do with the process, the sourcing, the construction, production, quality control, etc. So I thought I could share that because it's a perspective that people don't see. And so I decided to do that on YouTube, and I started a YouTube channel. Then people were very, very active in commenting. And eventually they also started to ask more generic style questions like, but Justine, actually, I don't know what suits me. I don't know how to pick colors. Like even in your collection, which color should I pick? I don't know. What suits me? Proportions, cuts, patterns, etc. And I thought, well, I guess I could teach about that too. So I expanded the topic on my channel, and it's been 8.5 years, I think. And it has now crossed 1 million subscribers. So the interest is there, clearly. And I see that as a very good complement of my work as a designer. So it's actually 2 different jobs that are both technically full-time jobs. And I always get the question like, when are you going to drop one? Because you can't possibly do both and keep doing it and not burn out. To which I always say, but actually, I like doing more than one thing at the same time. They both feed into my creative process and talk to each other, so to speak. So I am still doing both. I'm still enjoying it. I don't see a reason to change that. And so I have two jobs.
But I like that they're connected to one another and one helps you probably generate ideas or even, I guess, from the feedback that you get from your audience and your viewers, you understand what elements of your brand you maybe need to talk about more or the process of how you make your products. Does it fuel a little bit of your, I guess, marketing and communications for your brand?
It does, definitely. Because I get feedback, I get wishes, I get questions. I get comments about people's style challenges, which is very interesting insight, which as a designer, I can help solve because design is a very practical thing. I don't see design as art. I think it's really practical, applied kind of art. So there's that. And also, I enjoy just sharing content as well, I must say. Things that don't necessarily feed into my design work, but that I feel people would be thankful for, like general styling tips. There is like a sort of secret around styling. I feel like celebrity stylists usually don't want to share their secrets, how they do it. I'm like, but actually this is very good knowledge for everyone and it's not something that we learn in school. So why not share it openly and freely? Because my YouTube channel is free. And I feel that people appreciate that as well. So it's a mix of both things.
Very complementary things that I don't think I quite put together myself when you were talking about, studying fashion or design in school. I can imagine that there's a lot that you learn about the history of the art or the field. But then also, is there an element that you're taught around how to tailor the pieces towards individual style?
Absolutely. Fit is absolutely essential. Even when you're buying ready to wear, I always say if you can afford it, have the waist taken in a little bit because it changes everything. You don't have to have a tailor completely custom make a garment for you, but like there are a few tweaks here and there that you can do easily or have it done that really change the impression of the entire outfit on you without costing the world. It depends on in which country you are because, for instance, in India, tailors are a lot cheaper versus the income level. So when people in India tell me I can't afford this and that brand, my answer is always look at your local tailors because they're impressively skilled. Like they're amazing tailors. They still learn proper tailoring in India. So it depends in which country you are. In France, tailors are not such a common thing and they can be expensive, but like it depends in which region of the world you are. Another thing that I learned from my fashion training is how to look at trends. Because when you look at trends from an angle of the last 10 years, you see a couple of seasons. But when you look at it with the perspective of 150 years, right? With the whole fashion history point of view, then you realize that what happened in the last 10 years is actually micro. And that is all pretty similar compared to 80 years ago, 140 years ago. So that's also an interesting way of looking at things differently. And so I have another perspective when I do my videos about trends every season. So once in fall, once in spring. There are trends where I see immediately these are fads. Like we don't even need to talk about them. They'll be gone in 6 months. Let's talk about the things that are actually a bit more macro. And that's a filter I use now in my work as well.
I guess a question in relation to that, there are, I'm sure, some things that are foundational and not necessarily fads, but they appear like fads to the general public. I'm thinking specifically of the obsession I think that people have now with colors, like finding your color and are you a winter, summer, and I'm still trying to work out what I am after watching like copious amounts of content on this. So is the obsession over something like that make it a little bit more of a fad and trendy?
I'm a huge fan of finding your own colors because I think we individually have a lot to win from that. So for me, it's not a trend topic. For me, it's a foundational issue, really, across decades. Like some people work with seasons. Are you a fall? Are you a spring? Are you a winter? These seasons don't change much during your life. They can in some cases, but like generally speaking, you're the same person your whole life. And so if you do the work once, you get to benefit from it forever. So I see the point in investing a little bit of time to find out what your colors are. It's a lot smarter from my perspective, than trying to follow and keep up with trendy colors. These change every year. If Pantone happens to name one color of the year which makes sense for you, by all means take it and integrate it to your wardrobe. But the filter should be your face, hair, eyes, features, and not what's the trendy color this season. They can overlap, but they rarely do.
Yeah, well, that makes a lot of sense because it's linked to what you were saying before around really understanding what your ideal style is for you.
Yeah, a good example for that is if you take the decade of the 70s, where all interiors and clothes were some kind of orange. A bit more yellow, a bit more red, but everything was orange. And that only suits people who have a warm undertone. And everyone else looks sick, like ill, like pale, on the background like that. So that's where trends don't necessarily overlap with what suits you personally. That's why I'm a fan of looking for what suits you and not everything that's on offer. I see trends as options, like every year, every season. And now it's 10 collections per year even, so in some houses. But so these collections are options that you can pick and choose from. I love to look at them for myself, not just for my videos, where I'm like, okay, this is an option. That suits my body type really well, actually. I'm going to get a bit of this and integrate it to my existing wardrobe. Or that color, that looks good in my own color palette, so I'm going to take a bit of that color. They are options, not a must. This is how I look at trends. They can refresh your perspective. They can modernize your style a little bit or just switch things up. But they should not have priority or more focus than your own basics.
Within even the basics, like everyone should own a really nice, well-fitted white t-shirt or tank top, for example, or great pair of jeans. There's also kind of that variance. The style can be a little bit more trendy of the jeans, or I don't know if you're the same, but I have a pair of jeans that I used to wear 20 years ago that I still love, and they're completely worn out and probably the style is out of fashion, but that's the timeless piece that I've invested in, and it's a higher quality product. So there's, I guess, a timeless style, and then there's a timeless item.
Timeless item is a little bit tricky, I think. This is my first reaction. I would need to think about it more. An item can vary on the long run. Like if we go back to that concept of looking at fashion over 150 years, jeans were not a thing. Just like white shirts are actually a concept from the 19th century, menswear. They don't actually fit properly on a woman's body. Never have. You can say, yeah, a white shirt is a classic. I would probably say yes to that. If you add lots of darts and take in everywhere, because a woman's body just doesn't work like a man's body, which makes fit a huge issue for shirts. But like denim jeans, I would not say that's timeless. Even though we've been wearing jeans for a good while now. Something that is more timeless is probably heels, because we see that in several centuries before, but the shape of the heels obviously varies dramatically between a stiletto and a platform, or wedged heel, or whatever heel you like to wear. These vary a lot. These are subject to trends. But the fact that people like to elevate their heights, this is a timeless thing. Would I say that pumps are a timeless item? No. Because the shape of the heel varies too much over time. The timeless style for me relates more to proper fitting, regardless of trends. If you find a good pair of denim jeans that fits your body amazingly well, this is a piece that will always look good on you, no matter with which heels or which top you wear it when you're 20, 40, 70.
Do you think there are some rules around how your style should look to qualify as being timeless? And I'm thinking of the Coco Chanel quote around dress shabbily and they remember the dress impeccably and they remember the woman. And I'm thinking, what is impeccable? It's kind of, for me, I'm interpreting that as neat, clean, feminine, maybe? Are there some qualifiers here?
Probably not too many patterns either, because patterns in prints are very subject to trends, which is difficult because I can see people from here who are going to comment. But I don't like solid colors. I only like prints and patterns, which I get. But these are subject to trends a lot more than a solid color. Chanel did solid fabrics. She rarely had patterns and prints on. She had this specific Chanel fabric, which is a novelty yarn woven together. Anyway, but this gives the impression of one solid color, just with trims and buttons, a typical Chanel jacket. So yes, this is sort of timeless in the sense that it doesn't immediately scream which decade it is from, right? But okay. Chanel also said showing your knees is like the ugliest thing in the world. Like she hated to see people's knees. So all her skirts and everything she designed was below the knee. That's not current anymore either.
Was that also a sign of the times that skirts were a little bit longer, like the pencil skirt went down a little bit longer?
For sure. Yeah. They were already up from the decades before that. But she felt in her time that there was a limit to how high you could go. Now we're like, there's no limit.
Right. I'm thinking of a very modern Gen Z style where everything is baggy and you're basically, it looks like you're wearing a bag. Jeans are baggy, the top is baggy. There's no silhouette. Do you need a silhouette to have more of that timeless look?
It depends on whether the baggy pants suit your body shape or not. So rather than talking about one trend, because baggy pants are a trend for a few years and then they'll be gone, I prefer to look at it from the perspective of, does it make your body look good? Maybe baggy pants are perfect for you, but maybe you'd like to highlight your waist more and then you need a bit more fit, or you like your legs and then the legs should be a little bit more in focus. It depends on what you want to highlight. Baggy pants highlight the hips. And that's it, because you can't see the legs. So we're in a period where hips are very in fashion, and the bigger the better, and the curvier the better. See the Kardashian influence. That's a category of influencers who have massively shaped the trend and the current aesthetics for women's bodies, but that will pass too. Look at Kate Moss in the 90s. Look at the body of the roaring 20s, so 100 years ago. Curves are not always in fashion. And then in between we have the 1950s, where it was all about an hourglass body, so the most important thing was actually the tiny waist in the middle. Curvy at the top, curvy at the bottom, waist as thin as possible. Depends on the decade.
It's so interesting. And I think everybody has their favorite decade for style. And the 1950s is a big one for me. And, you know, when you said like taking in the waist, tiny waist, it made me think of what you said at the start, which is it pays to get your clothes tailored when you purchase them. You know, take the time to go and get them fitted to you, because then you'll wear them. And I felt kind of almost like a wave of embarrassment when you said that, because I can't tell you how many pieces of clothing I've bought and then they don't fit exactly right, and I just don't end up wearing them. And I know that you actually recently saying that the most expensive item in your wardrobe is the one that you don't wear. It's that piece that you've bought and it just sits there.
That's right.
And I'm sure that happens quite a lot to a lot of people.
It happens to everyone for a very good reason, which is clothes. If you purchase ready-to-wear clothes, are just not fitted. They are completely neutral. They are as straight as possible, with as little breast as possible. Because if you add breast, then you have to put darts and everything, and it's complicated and it doesn't fit everyone. So most brands just do a rectangle for the top, because that's the easiest and everybody kind of fits in, but not well. Yeah. So it doesn't look good on anybody in the end, unless you have the perfect model size and proportions. But models right now are not real bodies. A model size, a model girl, who is used as a sample size for many brands, they are extremely thin, extremely tall. They are not the average of women's proportions around the world. So it's frustrating in the end for many women who have more curves, who are smaller, who just have different proportions. Like, all of them will have issues and will think that this one piece of garment, which looks good on the model, it doesn't fit them properly. Like, not really. And right now the trend is very extreme. The dress form that I work with for my patterns in my brand is from the early 90s. So it still has the kind of the women's body from the 80s, sort of. And it has a lot more curves and volume and butt and breasts than the current dress forms. When I was in fashion school, our dress forms were completely flat at the front and at the back. Like it's maybe 0.5% of women who look like this in the real world. And we are making patterns based on this dress form. It doesn't make any sense. Yeah, so when I ordered mine, I ordered like archive dress forms from a maker in the UK who was still offering that kind of dress form.
Yeah, so I was thinking of like the Cindy Crawford, Claudia Schiffer 90s body, where it's still very fit, but a little bit more
more
volume,
curves,
let's say.
more curves.
More curves.
But I have to say they also have a very tiny waist, these ladies. So the standard dress form for me would be curvy, kind of like them, but also with more waist, because realistically, the average woman has a wider waist than these ladies.
And that alongside all of the content that you make. Then you have 7 Rules book, which I have a copy of. I'll link that into the show notes. All of that, I can imagine, really gives people, maybe not even just women, but people a real confidence boost that there's nothing inherently wrong with them. It's just that they need to find the styles, the clothes, tailor them in a way that really suits them. Do you get a lot of feedback from your audience around the impact that's made?
Yeah, it's very positive feedback. It makes me very happy. I have by now thousands of people who've written to say that it helped them. And it's good because it's a skill set. Dressing your body, it's a skill set. So it can be learned and it can be taught. It's just not something that we learn in school, which is a pity. Don't you agree? Like, why don't we learn that? Why don't we learn about proportions and colors? And it's like very useful knowledge, isn't it?
Yes. Very useful. Yes. I think growing up, I just used to think you either dress well or you don't. And I guess I just don't know how to dress well. And then, once you grow up, your confidence builds and you find that's, inherently untrue. It's such a different mindset that you then apply to how you present yourself.
And isn't it sad that so many people think fashion is not for me? I just don't know how. It's not for people like me, or I don't know where to start, so I just give up. But you need clothes just like you need food. Like, you can't do without. And there are also incredible benefits to dressing well for your body, including being taken seriously in a job interview, being seen as knowledgeable and competent, because people do judge based on their first impression. We can discuss it, but that's the fact, right? People will look at you and say, she's got style. Even if it's partly unconscious. People notice this kind of thing, like the perception that you give with your look, the way you look externally, really matters. So learn the skills and then you've got an edge.
Yeah, definitely. I was having a conversation with my friends, actually, as a slight deviation to this, but connected, because we're going out on the weekend. So we were, of course, debating, what we should wear and how dressed up should we get. And one of them said, I think I might wear a blazer and a bra. Kind of, the Seinfeld episode with the blazer and the bra. And then my other friend said, I'm not brave enough to wear that. And I thought, well, that's an interesting way to interpret that. I think some people would say, it's, inappropriate or risky or too sexy or whatever it might be. And then some people see that as a confident choice that denotes that you're completely comfortable in your body and maybe you're comfortable taking a little bit of risk. It says so much about your personality as well.
About personality and also about culture. Imagine having that conversation on another continent. culture also influences what people perceive as being okay or not okay a lot. And education and social background. Like there are lots of parameters in there.
And the French style is generally seen to be very aspirational in that sense.
I think France is seen as the authority historically, but that's because there are so many houses from France and designers from France who became internationally famous and shaped the taste and the perception that people have elsewhere based on our French culture. To this day, like Fashion Week in Paris is the biggest one. It's the most visited one. It's the one with the most houses on the program, in the calendar. France cultivates that reputation as well, very well, I think. And there is something about growing up in France, which as a woman taught me a lot of these skills intuitively. And since making videos on YouTube, I realized that it's not like that elsewhere necessarily. I get a lot of feedback from countries like the US, for example, of people who say, listen, I didn't grow up in New York or LA. I grew up somewhere in the middle of the country. I have never learned this, nor I have ever met somebody who knows about this and could teach me about it. This is completely new land for me. And they go, oh, so much to learn that can be useful. So I actually have a lot of people subscribing from the US because they feel like they're missing a skill set, which to me feels almost natural because I grew up in France. It's something that my mother taught me that my grandma knew exactly well. Like my grandma only wore colors that suited her. Like they just know somehow. That's why people say in Paris, women are very stylish. Most of them kind of know their colors. I don't know if they can say that's the theory behind it and that's the method and blah, blah. But like intuitively, they kind of know.
There's a lot of videos that you make around French fashion and style and why it is so highly regarded and aspirational. But also I know there's a video you made around what French women eat and why are French women naturally skinny. So it is about the culture. It's about, it's not just the fashion and what you wear. It's also just the way that you're raised, the way that you hold yourself, the way that you value certain things in your life, maybe.
Yeah, and health is an important one, and exercise and a healthy diet. And the French way of eating is naturally pretty healthy. So that's a given advantage that we didn't earn. But that also shapes the standards of beauty around the world then. It's advantages and drawbacks.
Did you notice that when you were living in Germany?
One thing that I noticed and that everybody who knows both countries also tells me. In Germany, women dress up and take care of their looks until they become mothers. And for some reason, once they become mothers, they stop wearing, generalizing way too much here. They stop wearing heels. They only dress in comfortable things. They're like, it has to be practical. I have kids now. Like it's a mindset in the culture, which French mothers don't have. And when I moved back to France from Germany, I noticed that moms, 40, 50, 60 plus, were dressed up much more than me. Like I got casual in Germany, even though they're like 10, 20, 30 years older than me. They were wearing killer heels, dressed to a T, makeup on point, jewelry amazing. I'm like, I feel so underdressed. Oh, I forgot that here the standard is like up there. So I think that's a main cultural difference between France and Germany.
Have you been to Australia before?
No, never. I'd
Not
love
yet?
to. It's on my list.
Okay. Yeah, you'll have to come and visit us.
How is it there?
It's a little bit more like Germany in the way that you're describing it. Athletic wear is quite popular here, and there's a kind of a long-running joke that you come to Australia and you dress up really nicely, particularly if you're going into the big cities. And then after a week, you're like, oh, I'm just going to wear jeans and a t-shirt. And then a week later, you're like, oh, I'm just going to wear my jogging pants everywhere I go. So you become more and more casual to kind of fit into the very casual vibes of Australia. I mean, it is a beach culture as well. So there is a bit of that.
Yeah, but Berlin doesn't have that excuse, eh?
Yeah.
There are lots
This
of
is
reels
true.
on Instagram and TikTok of people who say, my look before moving to Germany, my look after moving to Germany. It's like one is dressed up and the after photo is like sweatpants, a huge tote bag where you just put everything, scarf up to here, beanie, done.
Oh, goodness. Sorry, everyone in Germany who's listening. We would love to hear from those of you who are more dressed up.
Germans make jokes themselves about it. Like, it's part
Yeah.
of Berlin's identity, I feel.
Yeah,
So they won't
that's the
be.
same as Australia. Yeah,
They won't be
they
mad.
won't be offended. Well, there is one thing that Australians, I think, are quite embarrassed about, which is that according to a study that I read, we have the highest number of clothing items that we purchase per person than anywhere else in the world. So I think globally it's 14 per year. In Australia, it's 56 new items of clothing. And you can imagine a lot of them go into landfill. So that is something that I'd love to talk to you about, because if you're finding the time to invest in really understanding your style and you're taking care to choose the items that will last longer and you're tailoring them, etc., then maybe you're less caught up with just buying lots of things that are trending, which is obviously a huge problem right now with fast fashion.
Keyword, fast fashion. One of my favorite topics. I'm surprised that Australia is leading the ranking. I thought it was the US. But I mean, all Western countries are way too high on that scale. We don't need that many new pieces of clothing per year, for sure. One excuse to that behavior is marketing by fast fashion brands. The fact that they bring out one collection every 2 weeks, and that 2 weeks after you purchase something, you enter the shop again, you're like, damn, that trend is gone already. I need the newer thing. And then you shop again. And because the price point is so low, it doesn't hurt your wallet. And you get a dopamine kick every time. So you keep doing it without really questioning or analyzing, am I going to wear this? Does this actually fit my style? Which occasion is that? Is it actually machine washable? Can I wear it more than once? Etc. Lots of questions which I recommend to ask yourself before making the purchase. I always say when you see an item that you like, think about it for at least 24 hours. Don't just buy it on impulse because you didn't have the time to process the questions and to make sure it's something that you actually need and will wear. So that's brilliant marketing by the fast fashion industry. I see your face reaction. I'm like, same. It's unfortunate, but they're very clever, very clever. So and at that price point, people are like, even if I only wear it once, it's $5. Like, oh well. But then the consequences of buying this and not wearing it and then giving it away or throwing it away is of course a lot higher than $5 for the environment. But you don't really see that. You're like in the moment, the shop looks good, the merch is amazing, the dress forms look fantastic, and you're like, I'll just take it and then go for a coffee. You don't really think about it. That's where they're very clever. But fast fashion is especially poor in fit, in quality, in durability, and they're not good investments, even if you have them tailored to take in the waste.
It's incredible that some of these items are so cheap, cheaper than food. And, there was this whole education piece around not buying impulsively when you're buying food or snacks. And we don't have that same level of education around clothing, which is arguably, so much cheaper now, but it doesn't account for the cost of actually making those products or even the disposal cost afterwards, the impact that it has on the environment. So many hidden costs in that equation.
Yeah, so I read a piece recently that made my hair stand up on my head of madness. It was explaining that there is a loophole in Europe when brands overproduce, which they like to do because they don't want to miss a sale and the product is so cheap. So they overproduce as a strategy. It's part of the process. And then if they donate that to associations, they can deduct it from their numbers, right? And the associations, the NGOs or whatever, have to calculate that in as we received a donation in nature. And then they have the problem of how to get How do we get rid of all that stuff we didn't need and didn't ask for? Such a loophole.
That's astounding.
Yeah. The lawmakers are always a step behind in regulating and controlling the influx of so much waste. But like, even if the brands end up with this, they will send it to Africa, typically, or South America, where the things pile up on one big mountain. It's a mountain at this point. It's not a hill anymore. And then it just stays there. And the chemicals used in the production, the colors, the dyes, everything, sinks into the ground and goes into the water reserves. It's insane. If you've seen in National Geographic, there was a documentary about the Atacama Desert, which really struck a chord with me because I visited it before all that stuff. And now the Atacama Desert is one big landfill place of fast fashion clothes. It's really sad. It's really sad. And they're like, it's very far, not our problem. But now some of these countries are pushing back and saying, you know what? We don't want your garbage anymore.
Yes.
Deal with it yourself, please. Thanks. And I'm like, oh, we need the next strategy to not have to deal with the waste.
There's so many problems along that entire kind of ecosystem or value chain. It does sound like, especially with some of the recent announcements like Italy, the $1 million euro fine for Shein for greenwashing. And I think in France, there's a higher taxation for fast fashion coming through.
Just forbade advertising for fast fashion, also via influencers.
Oh, okay.
Which is great. So they're going to find loopholes and the law will have to evolve, but that's a very good start. Very good start.
I was really genuinely surprised when I was doing, obviously, like a little bit of research before this podcast. I went on YouTube to look up Shein to see what young content creators were saying about this brand, expecting it to be negative. And it was fashion haul from Shein. I kind of couldn't believe it, that maybe the education about the impact of these items is lower than what I had expected.
It's a psychological mechanism that when you buy something, you kind of want to justify that it's good enough quality. I get this kind of comment a lot as well. Like, oh, for that price, it's actually fine. Define fine. Like, is that good enough? Is it actually good? Are you going to wear it? They're like, yeah, but I just need it for tonight. It's okay if it falls apart afterwards. And I was like, no. Crying. This is not a sustainable approach, obviously, but you don't want to say, yeah, I buy crap. I know it, but I still do it. Like, who wants to say that? It's kind of hard to recognize for yourself because it creates a cognitive dissonance between your behavior and your values. People kind of know that it's not ethical and that it's also not great, but the dopamine kick of getting it, so it's a very tricky situation psychologically. There are also people who argue, I can't afford luxury, to which I always reply, listen, between Primark and luxury, there's quite a range. Yeah, but I don't have time to look at, no, you don't want to take the time to look into further options. But they are there, especially since we have e-commerce now. Like, you're not even limited to the options in your town. You can also shop online. Do you want to spend the time learning about this and researching more sustainable brands? Or do you take the easy path, which is you just go to Primark because there is one in every town. And you get the immediate kick and you walk out with the shopping bags and everything. And it feels great. It's a complicated conversation. I have one video on YouTube, which has been watched over 200,000 times, I think, by now, which is 5 myths that fast fashion brands want you to believe. One of them is, I cannot afford more. Another one is, if I change my behavior, I'm just one person, so it's not going to make a difference. So myths like this, which fast fashion brands have been planting into our brains through giant marketing budgets over time, and that we kind of believe now. And then I answer with arguments and numbers to those assertions.
With facts and data and educating people. And you have an amazing list called the Fast Fashion Blacklist, which is super helpful. And it covers off not just the environmental footprint, but it has human rights, labor, appropriate labor laws, etc., PR and reputation.
Yeah, abusive marketing. That's a big point. Like a brand that says we have green jeans and puts a little green leaf on the label and makes a photo shoot which is in front of a wheat field, and then the pants cost $12. And I'm like, hell no.
Right.
Hell no.
But Justine, question for you. Because the areas to fix are many, and a lot of the people inside of these organizations are trying to make progress on this, do you feel like all of the marketing is untrue or manipulative, or do you feel like a part of it is also that they're trying to show where they are making progress to substantiate further investment in the right areas?
Well, there's the fundamental issue with this. Some people in these organizations might be trying to improve things. However, the fundamental business model is wrong and exploits people and resources. So I don't think a fast fashion brand can become ethical unless they start producing a lot less, start paying people properly, which means that they cannot hold their price tags that low anymore. It's fundamentally wrong in terms of ethics and sustainability to run a fast fashion brand. Now, you might start using organic cotton, but then they have to pay so much attention to the costs that they even make organic cotton production too intensive and depletes the soils. The way they are driven by cost saving cannot be compatible with ethics and sustainability. Now, there are brands that are not fast fashion that do way less collections that are starting to realize this could be improved. Like we could do this and that better and start communicating about it. There, I'm here for it. At a $5 price tag, that just cannot work mathematically. So I'd look into mid-range and normal to higher range brands with lower productions, lower number of items per year, a lower number of collections, and see how they thrive to improve and communicate about it most transparently. But in the fast fashion category, I don't see how.
That's fair. And the advocacy for just taking the time, go and research the companies that you are buying from. Are they fast fashion? If they're more of a mid-size, what are they doing to improve the system? Is, I think a fair ask of a consumer. And I'm hoping that your list grows bigger as well, because I've found it really helpful and it's encouraged me to do more research.
Yeah, in that list, actually, it's a free resource that I send to people who request it. There is a form somewhere on the tab in that resource.
Yes.
To submit brand names for us, for me and my team to look into. So we get lots of suggestions there. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to be sending you one because it's Saba. It's the top that I'm wearing, which is an Australian brand.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's an Australian brand that I love. But in looking online, and this is, I think, what happens to a lot of people, there's a lot of information missing that's publicly available. And so I don't feel educated enough to be able to say whether they are being ethical or not.
Missing information is often a red flag. If a brand discloses nothing about where and how they produce, it's probably not a good sign. I mean, I wouldn't say it's automatically wrong, but when they do it right, they love to tell you about it. So if they don't, maybe you can ask as a consumer, you can always ask, write to them and say, I want to know where and how you produce, and see if they reply or if they elude the question.
And especially if you're paying a little bit more, buying a $5 t-shirt, you're buying a $100 t-shirt.
It is absolutely your right to know. Yeah. On my website, I have, for my handbag line, inside each product, I have a QR code. And if people scan it, it takes you to a page with the whole detail. Where is the leather from, the canvas from, why is it that color, how was it dyed, how was it tanned? Heavy metal free in my case. Very proud about that. Where are the different elements in the bag from? and why I made those decisions. It's a very long page, but I think that transparency is necessary. And when people learn about it, they understand how technical, complicated it is to actually create a product like this. And it also helps them value and appreciate the work behind the handbag that they're owning a lot more.
Yes, and there's also another video you can watch from Justine where she talks about how can you tell that a handbag has been designed well, what to look out for, which was one of the first videos I ever watched of yours when I was buying a very expensive handbag, another Australian brand, Oraton. And I was thinking, well, if I'm going to invest hundreds of dollars, how do I know? And your video was really helpful. So
I think it is the only video on my channel where I have lipstick on my teeth.
Okay.
I still have PTSD from that video. And I still get comments like, you've got lipstick on your teeth. No joke. Think I didn't notice? Like, do you know how long it takes to edit a video like this? Trust me, I saw.
You saw, you were like, listen,
I noticed.
it's filmed.
Too late. I noticed too late. But I did notice.
Well, I didn't notice. I was just paying attention to all the great advice that you were giving. So
thank you so much for saying that.
All of your advice, I think, is extremely helpful, both in the kind of the start of the conversation that we had around, helping people find their confidence, and the very end of the conversation, helping people to become more educated and confident with their choices. So you do amazing work, and I really appreciate you coming on to have a chat with me about it. I do have one last question for you before I let you go, and
Sure.
It's what your go-to is when you're trying to gain a fresh perspective.
I think that a day where I learned nothing is a wasted day. So I make sure it never happens. For instance, I read books. At least 50% of the books I read must be written by women. Because in my education in France, most classic books were written by men. So I need to kind of compensate to get rid of that bias. I also read books from everywhere in the world, not just Western Europe, from people of very different origins. And that expands my horizon big time already. For instance, the style in South America, where it's kind of fantastic, Isabel Allende style, or 100 Years of Solitude, books in a style and the creativity that just did not exist in France. So books is a very big source for me. I also enjoy learning about people who are in completely different fields. At the moment, I'm listening to a podcast. It's in French, so I cannot share, but it's a culture podcast about Hildegard von Bingen. Do you know her?
Mm-mm.
No, right? I'm not surprised. So she lived in the 11th century in a monastery, a cloister. And she was very good at using plants to heal. And she was apparently also a genius writer of music, which I had no idea about, with completely different instruments. And so yesterday I listened to an episode in that series about her, where during 1 hour, they explain how her music was different. And I have absolutely no clue about music. So I sat tight, listened to it. I was like, I see. New world, interesting. I also have a book which is called Daily Rituals, How Artists Work. Do you know that book?
No.
It's a series, a list of how creative people you would know, because they're famous, spend their days. He typically wakes up, starts with a glass of whiskey, some are hardcore, and a cigar, and then he sits down and writes for 5 hours. Then there's lunch, and then he reads letters from his friends, and then writes again. And then he goes to bed at 7. Okay. I find it fascinating to see how other people think, behave, create. Yeah.
That would be much more interesting than habits of highly efficient business people.
Yes. Yeah. Habits of successful people. Yeah. I have that book and I have not finished it. I must admit. Daily habits, daily rituals, I have.
I wonder if there's some link there between people who have a multidisciplinary mindset and people who don't want to waste a day. I love that you said that. It's maybe you're not doing the same thing to optimize the value that you're generating. You're doing lots of different things.
That's how my brain works. I couldn't do only one thing because I would get bored very quickly. there are two types of people, among other ways of classifying people. One is the entrepreneur type who's good at starting things, and one is the execution type, I think. I don't remember what it's called, but like people who are good at seeing it through. That's not me. Like I'm much more comfortable starting new things. I'm good at idea generation. I'm good at connecting the dots and making the strategy. I'm not great at everything that comes after. For me, it's more of a stretch. Yeah.
That's surprising considering the regular content that you put out and the business that you run. Maybe you're not giving yourself enough credit on the execution.
But that's because YouTube is my hobby. It's not my main job and it's not my only job. Otherwise, I would probably have gotten bored of it already,
Right.
to be fair. Yeah. But I do it on the side, so it's okay. I don't have to do that. I have a job already.
You get a lot of joy out of it. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I got a lot of joy out of this conversation, Justine. So thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Joe. I loved this conversation.